The Walking Dead Rewrite, Season 8, Episode 10, Son of Sanctuary. Now this episode will begin with Carol. As we see her waking up for the day, she then goes outside and is starting to walk towards the exit. As you have Daryl that walks up to her and asks her what she's doing. She tells him she's going to do a sweep for Negan, and Daryl says, "Cool, do you mind if I join you?" Carol kind of doesn't look like she wants him joining along, but she lets him come anyway. As we see them walking out, they're talking about Negan, and I definitely like this line from the show when Daryl's like, "Yeah, I can't really see Negan wearing a mask." And, Carol will kind of be like, we're going to see what we see today. And as she goes up the hill, and as she looks out into the distance with the binoculars, Daryl's like, "You want to tell me what we're really doing out here?" And Carol would tell him, "Alpha's horde, as the music builds up, we're going to find it, and then we're going to destroy it." As it zooms out on them looking out into the distance. Now after the intro, we'd be back with Eugene. As we see him trying to fix up the radio in Alexandria in his house, we have Rosita that comes by and opens up the door and asks him how he's doing. And Eugene would basically explain to her how a few weeks ago, this thing broke and now they have no way to communicate with Hilltop over the radio. So Eugene is trying to fix it in order for them to be able to communicate with Hilltop again, and therefore any other community for that matter. And Rosita tells him, "Well, I'm glad you're doing it because I would have no idea." And Eugene says, "It'll be fixed soon. I just need to figure out how I'm going to get this part to connect to this part." And he would kind of tell her all that. And Rosita would say, "Well, good luck, Eugene. I gotta go for my shift, so I'll see you later." And Eugene says, Yeah, I'll see you later," as Rosita walks out of the house. But as Rosita walks outside and we see her walking down the street, we then cut to downstairs back in Negan's cell. As we see an open cell door, we have Gabriel standing there with his arms crossed. Rick and Michonne are looking at an empty cell. And Rick asks Gabriel, "Did you see how it happened?" And Gabriel says, "No. I came down here this morning to talk to him about what happened last night, and I came down here and he was gone." And Rick looks pissed off and says, "I saw Carol and Daryl leaving earlier. If he's anywhere nearby, they'll find him." And Gabriel says, "Is that what they're out there for?" And Rick says, "Well, that's what Carol told me when she left." And Gabriel says, "Well, we should have a meeting about this today. People are going to be on full alert now that he's out there. Having Negan loose during all this is not going to be good. People are stressed to the max anyway." And Rick says, "Yeah, I know. Let's not blow this out of proportion yet. We're going to find him. So until then, let's just keep everybody calm in here, okay?" And Gabriel says, "Okay, Rick, you got it." As Rick and Michonne walk out of the cell, Gabriel looks pissed because he doesn't know what happened to Negan. Now back at the Hilltop, you would get to see all the dead bodies. As Yumiko is making sure they're all dead, she says, "Over there," as they're piling more dead bodies on. And then we see her walk in. As we see Carl, Glenn, and Earl that are all talking about the tree. And Earl is convinced that this is the Whispers. And he keeps saying all these little nicks, this is them. It's just a matter of time before this place gets attacked. And we need to be ready. These little warnings, this is a sign. We need to be prepared. And Carl says, we don't know if it's them for sure. And Earl says, "Yeah, we know it's them. And I'm going to make sure the next time something like this happens, we're going to be ready." And Earl would walk off, and we can see he's very determined to make sure this doesn't happen again. We then see Negan as we see the reflection of him through the water as he's about to drink the water, but then he doesn't. He then puts water on his face, and then he turns around to see Brandon, a brand new character in the Walking Dead rewrites, as he then smiles and says, "Oh man, the look on your face. You're fast. It took me forever to catch up." As he gives him some water, and Negan then smiles as we have discovered a new character who seems to have taken a liking to Negan. We then see Rosita, who's on watch point, as we see her standing guard at Alexandria. We then see her look out with binoculars, and she sees a huge military arriving at the community. As she yells for Rick, Rick and some of the others run towards the gate as they then open, and we see it's Dwight, Sherry, Ozzy and some of the military from the sanctuary coming to give them a warning. As they let Dwight and the rest of them in, Rick then hugs Dwight and says that he's happy to see him. And Dwight says, same to you. And Dwight would then say, Rick, there's a situation at Hilltop. And Rick asks, hey, is everything okay? Like, did anything happen? And Dwight says, yeah, last night a big tree fell on the wall of the Hilltop. A few people are injured. There were a few deaths, but don't worry, Carl, Glenn, and everybody else, they're fine, but there were some injuries. We suffered a lot, and a bunch of the dead got in. We had to take care of it. And Rick says, so Carl's okay? And he's like, yes, yeah, Carl is fine. And then he kind of notices that Rick is holding something back, and he says, you okay? And Rick says, no, I'm not. And Dwight says, what's going on? And Rick says, Negan. And Dwight looks kind of nervous, and so does Sharon. He says, Negan, I went down to see him this morning and he was gone. Now I've got patrols out there looking for him, but we don't know where he is. Nobody's found him yet. And Sherry says, well, you know what? I'll take a few of my guys. We'll find him, no problem. And Dwight says, you're coming back, right? And Sherry says, yeah, I'll be back in a bit. The last thing we need is Negan out there when we're already dealing with what we have now. And Dwight says, okay, babe, just be careful. And he kisses Sherry as her and a few of the other military guys are gonna go out to try to find Negan. Now back with Negan and Brandon, Negan would be eating like some granola and some stuff, completely ignoring him, and we would see just like in the original show, I wouldn't change any of this. I love how he's almost like a Negan fanboy. I really like what the actor did for this, and honestly, I'm not really going to change anything here. The only thing we're going to change is obviously in this version, he's not going to mention Carl, obviously because Carl is still alive. So in this version, I would have him bring up what he did to Abraham, and Negan would say that, you know, yeah, what about it? And Brandon would talk about how that's what we're going to do to Rick Grimes, right? And he would then put the stick to him and say, I'm not going to do that. Brandon, people are a resource. Do you understand me? And then he would kind of pipe down and say, yes, I'm with you, obviously. We're both Negan. And Negan would kind of give him that smirk, and then they would keep going. Now, just like in the show, I would have him surprise him with a, you know, kind of custom-made Lucille, as well as the jacket. Now, I definitely would keep all of this. He would get tackled by the dead. Brandon wouldn't help him, obviously, because he's, you know, trying to give him Lucille and stuff like that. And yeah, I would definitely have him offer him Lucille as well, too. I think it'd be really cool, and it would kind of almost tempt Negan. However, just like in the show, he would also ask him to put that away in his backpack, almost kind of showing the evolution of the character and how much he doesn't want to be who he once was, and I think that's a really cool progression. Now, back with Daryl and Carol, we would get to see them as they're kind of, you know, watching from a distance, they're watching the herd, and then Daryl would ask, are you just doing this to take another shot at Alpha? And Carol would kind of argue with him a little bit and kind of talk about how, you know, I didn't bring the gun, Daryl. And then she would say she needs to go pee. And once she does that, just like in the show, he would look inside the bag and he would notice, okay, nothing in there. And then when Carol comes back, she would notice what he did and she would call him out on it and say, you know, find what you were looking for. And she was like, Daryl, I did not bring the gun. And then we then get to see Daryl that then says, so we doing this? And Carol says they are. So as they're about to do whatever they're about to do, Daryl says, well, if the plan's this stupid, it may as well be us. And then they walk off to do whatever they're gonna do with the herd up ahead. Now, just like in the TV show, I would definitely show this for Negan's redemption arc, which is him going into the bus and saving the family. I would love that. And I think it definitely shows, you know, how much Negan has changed as a person. So this scene, I would definitely keep in the show, as well as Brandon. He wants to then kill them. And Negan says, okay, look, I appreciate everything you've done for me since Alexandria, but it's about to get really dangerous. So I suggest that I go on my own and you go back at Alexandria. And he then talks about, you know, oh, well, I can't do that. I'm a bad liar. And Negan would put it pretty simple. Okay, then, new plan. You go wherever the hell you want, just as long as I don't have to see that creepy ass face of yours ever again. And that is absolutely Negan dialogue, and I would never, for the life of me, ever get rid of something like that. But it definitely shows Brandon is definitely a very cold, you know, human being. For willing to offer him to kill a kid, that really takes a psychopath, and we clearly can see Brandon is not right. And another scene I would never get out of the show is the nut-tapping speech. I mean, honestly, who does not like to see a comedic Negan line? Honestly, That is amazing, and it really shows just the kind of character that we're still watching. However, another thing I would still also have is his offer to bring them to Hilltop. You just can't tell them who brought you, because obviously Negan does not want anything to happen to this family, and you know, he kind of makes that clear in this scene. So then he says that they're gonna go, you know, get some firewood and stuff like that, and you know, they're gonna kind of settle in for the night, and he says, keep those, you know, fingers away when my nuts are around. And he's like, deal? Okay, good. So I think this scene definitely needs to stay in here. It really shows Negan just as more of a person instead of a villain, and I think it really shows just his true character in the end. Back with the Whispers, we get to see Gamma, who is walking around, as we then see her meeting up with some of the Whispers. And just like in The Walking Dead Season 10 Episode 2, we would see some of the Whispers talking about Alexandria with Gamma and how there's food, there's water, there's protection, and they want to make a break for it. They want to have a safe place to live. And Gamma, as we reveal in this scene, is actually building up a small group of Whispers that are going to try to escape the Whisper camp. As we can now see, Gamma is trying to figure her way out of the Whisper camp. But as she then walks up to Alpha and Beta, we see a Whisper standing there, and Alpha and Beta are discussing battle plans. And then we have a Whisper that says we could release our army of thousands. And Beta gets pissed off and he wants to kill him. Alpha then holds him back and says, say your piece. And as he explains what he wants to do, Alpha then says, that is a vote. Anyone agree? And then we would hear from Alpha. As we reveal, the little groups of the dead is them. The tree is them. All these little nicks, it'll crush them. It's not a bad idea, but that's not the way she wants to do things. So as she goes up to him, she says, that's democracy for you. She gives him that little Alpha smirk, and then she slices the guy's arm. He falls to his knees, and she says, all it takes is a few nicks. And then she gives Beta the knife and lets him finish the job. As Gamma is staring at this and watches this happen, she looks back at her Whisper friends behind her. She gives them a nod to say, we are getting the hell out of here. Now, as the sun is starting to set, we see that Eugene finally, after a lot of effort, has put the radio back together. But as he's trying to get a hold of Hilltop, nobody is responding to him. We see nobody's responding, and then he decides, well, frig it, we're gonna broadcast everywhere. So then, as he does that, he calls himself Taterbug. And then, unlike what we would usually see, somebody actually responds to him. And we have a suspicious voice on the radio, which we have heard before. And she says, oh my God, I copy. Is there really someone out there? And Eugene would look surprised. Now, one of the scenes that we would also be keeping in the show is Daryl and Carol approaching the border. I really like this scene because it's kind of the last chance for them to kind of be like, if anything goes wrong, we're gonna end up right here. We got luck on our side, right? And I definitely think it's one of them moments where it just kind of, you can kind of tell like they're nervous about doing this, but at the same time, they have to know what, they have to know what they're really facing here. And that's really what this scene represents. So as they split off and as they tell themselves they're going to meet there after, about an hour, Daryl and Carol go their separate ways. So as Negan is coming back with some firewood, we then see, just like in the Walking Dead show, Brandon has killed the mother and the son. And as he looks at Negan, he says, I knew you were testing me. Negan would drop the logs and then says, then I remember this is Negan. He's always messing with people. You wanted to know. You wanted to know that I had the balls to do what needed to be done. Well, what do you think? I did. I totally passed, right? I am Negan. And then Negan would smash his face in with a rock, beat his head in until Brandon is dead. Just like in the show, I think this was a phenomenal scene, and I am not going to cut that out whatsoever. As Negan gets the Lucille and the leather jacket and walks off to do whatever he's about to do. Now, back in the woods, I love this scene in the TV show, and I think it is so cool. As you've got the herd that is going around, of course, you have Daryl that's in the woods, and just like in the show, just to camouflage himself, I think this scene was so cool. When Daryl gets against the tree, he puts down a walker and then rubs the blood all through his face, so then the walkers just pass him by. I love the feel of this scene, and I think it is so interesting to see what they do here. As we then see coming up, we have Daryl, and as he is now hiding, we see Carol going through the woods, and as some of the dead are starting to surround her, she takes out her knife and she's trying to be quiet. But as the dead are starting to surround Carol from every direction, all of a sudden we see the military come in and shoot a whole bunch of the Whisperers and the zombies as Carol is rescued by Sherry and the military. As Sherry walks up to her and asks her if she's okay, and Carol says, yeah, I'm totally fine, but we have to find Daryl. And Sherry says, oh, okay, where is he? And Carol says, follow me. So as we see Daryl, he arrives back at the border, and we see him covered in blood. As we then see Carol, but now she's standing with Sherry and the rest of them at the border. And Daryl says, any luck? And Carol says, no, nothing. And Daryl says, all right, there's more of them out there. And Sherry says, yeah, we saw a few of them. This herd is bigger than we even imagined. And Carol says, well, we didn't find Negan, and frankly, I think we should go back home. Things are about to go bad out here. And Daryl says, you go. Sherry, do you mind taking her back? And Sherry says, of course. And Carol says, what are you doing? And Daryl says, I'm not letting Negan loose out here. I'm gonna find him. Don't you worry about me. You go. And Daryl would say, hell, I'll probably beat you back. And Carol says, okay, just be safe. And Daryl says, it's okay. And Daryl splits off to go find Negan as Sherry takes Carol back. However, the unfortunate thing is that they have now crossed the border once again. We then are back with Eugene as he's talking about ice cream and as he's getting to know this random person on the radio. I would not change anything here. I think it's really, really cool. And obviously the question is, where does this character come from? What is this character? How does she, obviously know all this stuff? And how did she know to contact Eugene? And obviously there's a lot of mystery here within who he's talking to, and we still don't know if this is exactly a good thing or not. However, we know how it goes in the show and we know how it goes in the comics, so we'll see if this is the same when it comes to the rewrites. But they would be kind of sharing life stories and they would be kind of talking about the world before. And I think it's really, really cool to see Eugene talking to a new character. Now we're back with Negan as he then has the leather jacket on and he says, little pig, oh, let me in, and there you are. I am gonna puff. I am gonna blow your. And then someone pushes Negan to the ground. Negan falls as the Whispers approach him. Beta walks up to him, and Negan says, all right, you big ass freak. Let's do this. And now it is the next day as we then see Negan, who is tied up by the Whisperers, and he would make the same joke as in the show. Oh, gentlemen or ladies, I guess it's kind of hard to tell underneath the outfits, but I want to join, okay? I am a joiner. Get me a damn application already. And Beta would try to shut him up, and he would say, oh, well, cool your tits there, Jolly Green Giant. And he would say, maybe I should just slit your throat. Be done with it. And Negan would then tell him exactly what Beta would want to hear. For the last few years, I have been locked up by your enemy. So you take me to your leader, and I will spill every goddamn secret I know. And Beta then kind of sounds intrigued and makes him keep moving. So as he takes Negan back, Alpha would say, test him. If he's worth it, I'll know about it. And then Beta then has to listen to Alpha's orders. So just like in the TV show, you would see the process of Beta training Negan. Obviously, making him kill the pig. Obviously, making him dump a whole bunch of the stuff into the ground. He would test Negan, and I think it'd be very comedic, just like in the show. And I think it's very interesting to see Beta and Negan interact. I really would not change a single thing in this scene. And then we cut to night, and we see them eating the food that they had over the day that they were hunting. And we would have Beta that says that Negan cannot eat. He didn't work for it. And he'd be like, I helped kill and cook the damn pig. At least I can get as a little piece of bacon. And he would throw Negan by the side. And then you would see Alpha standing there, and Negan would pipe down. But as he goes to sit, a Whisperer gives him some food, and Beta notices that. So as they're walking through the herd, Negan would then talk to him about the fact that, hey, I'm not going anywhere. And after all this time, Beta then gets pissed and he says, finally, something we can both agree on. you're not gonna be going anywhere. And then he would kill the Whisper that offered Negan food. And Negan would say, wait, did you just make a goddamn joke? And he would say, I'd be so impressed if I wasn't so pissed off right now. And he then would start killing a bunch of the dead. So now as it cuts to the next day, the daylight is starting to shine through the window and Eugene is still talking to this Stephanie. And I really like this, and this would be the last scene we see of them in this episode, as he then says, like, you know, let's keep this, you know, kind of just between us, and, you know, Stephanie doesn't really want to tell her people yet, so they agree to keep this communication between just the two of them, but we'll have to see if Stephanie can be trusted. As we're back at the Whispers, Beta then walks up to Alpha. Alpha looks very upset as Beta asks her what's going on, and she says, Gamma and some of the others, I saw them leaving. I didn't give them orders to go, they left. She was heading straight in the direction of Alexandria. And Beta looks pissed and says, I'll find her and I'll kill her. And Alpha stops him and says, no, you find her and you bring her to me, understand? And Beta says, I understand. But as Beta is getting ready to go, we then hear, I am ready for my goddamn skin suit. As he walks in, all Negan-like, and says, you better bring that on the count of my humongous balls. Hi, I'm Negan. We haven't formally met, but I sure as hell know who you are, and whether my reputation precedes me or not. And he kneels before her and drops the stick and says, I'm all in. Whatever you want, whatever I got, it's yours. And as we then see, Alpha has accepted Negan into the group. So that was The Walking Dead, Season 8, Episode 10, Son of Sanctuary. We have covered a lot of ground in this episode. As we've seen Negan, he went from not wanting to be that guy anymore, to killing Brandon, to infiltrating the Whispers, to then actually kneeling before Alpha. We have seen a lot of progression with Negan's character in this episode, and we will see if his true intentions are as they seem on screen, or if it'll go the direction as the comic and the TV show did. We will just have to wait and see. However, we also had in this episode, we had Rick and we had everybody else back at Alexandria dealing with the disappearance of Negan. We had Sherry, who then saved Daryl and Carol before they got killed by Alpha's horde. As we then have seen, Daryl is now going on his own mission. What that is, we will just have to wait and see. But we also found out in this episode that Gamma does not want this life, just like every other Whisper. Gamma was looking for her way out, and we have now seen that she has found it, and now Beta is going to try to hunt her down. As we then see Eugene also talking to a stranger on the radio. We'll see where that goes. We'll see where that storyline ends up. And the episode definitely has been building, but I can confirm to you guys this. Next episode is the beginning of the Whisper War. So as we get ready for that, stay tuned, because coming up next is The Walking Dead, Season 8, Episode 11, Stalker. Thanks for watching.
My God, no!